For anyone new to the channel, I'm not much of a Slipknot fan. I'm gonna talk about what makes Before I Forget by Slipknot great, what makes it work. My first encounter with this song was on Guitar Hero 3. I was a little on it at first, but after, you gotta beat the game and you gotta complete everything. I went through the song a couple times. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. This is a lot of fun, and it eventually became one of my favorite songs on that game. I still enjoy this song today. I think it's a great jam. And, it's just nice to talk about some positive things once in a while. Like I've talked about in many other videos, guys, I love making these for you. These reactions can be great. The mixing videos I know you guys really enjoy. I love making those a lot, which, by the way, harder to get a hold of multi-tracks than you realize. But many of them are subject to copyright claims and are a massive pain in the butt. My revenue is starting to dry up. The economy is getting crappy. It would mean the world to me if you guys would support me on Subscribestar. Link to that is in the description. Or you can become a YouTube member. You can do that hitting the join button, I believe, or even just sending a tip, becomethenight@gmail.com. I am also available to mix your stuff. Email me, becomethenight@gmail.com. All right, let's listen to this track. All right, right off the bat, things I notice. There's something a little floppy and chewy about the tone, and I think that's part of what makes it so freaking cool. When I haven't listened to this song for a while, it's even hard for me to determine exactly what the pitches are supposed to be. I think that's actually part of what makes this intro so dynamic. It kind of puts you off kilter a little bit. The performance is a little floppy, so it's also hard to figure out exactly where the feel is supposed to be. Again, that's part of what makes this so cool, is it's like, whoa, this is like really aggressive. I'm not exactly sure where to put it yet. And then the drums come in here. And then with the bass and the drums, it's like, oh, it's all locked in now. Okay, just great way of immediately building anticipation and giving us a ramp up in tension. Good stuff. So far, we've only played one basic riff, but we are using arrangement elements to increase the dynamic and give us a sense of, oh, okay, we're going somewhere. We're going somewhere. We go from listening intently to figure out what this riff is to then bobbing our heads and getting a little stanky face on. It's good stuff. First big thing I notice here, the rushing a little bit. And they're going to continue to rush a little bit, but we're going to talk about that. Such a weird drum groove. Like, it's not the world's most atypical, but it doesn't feel like something you would naturally write to a part like this, and that's kind of also what makes it cool. It's just a little different from usual, especially with the ba-da-doom, the double snare down to the kick really fast. Again, not perfectly in time, but consistent. How quickly it happens, and also the slightly out of time rushed nature of it almost kind of makes it feel like a flam, and flams get across a lot of intensity, which I think really adds to the grossness of this, the hairy untamedness of the whole thing. Vocals, massive thumbs up. Huge thumbs up to the vocals. So now listening to this, it's like, is this nu metal? Yes, technically this is nu metal. It's from 2004, so it's like right at that time. But a thing that Slipknot was doing that a bunch of other nu metal bands weren't doing at the time. A lot of the nu metal bands kind of took the grunge thing from the 90s and infused back a little bit of metal, again, a little bit of Merrow metal, if you will, but whether that's Pantera or Metallica during that time, and kind of fused the two together into this new, highly produced, affected metal, which was cool. Slipknot, at least on this album, was like, okay, let's vacuum out that grunge stuff, and let's reintroduce a little bit of thrash elements that had been missing for a hot minute. It's not super cleanly performed to where it feels hyper edited and tons of punch-ins and everything. It feels like the band was in a room and they just knocked this out, right? Now, while the band doesn't feel tight to a grid, they feel tight together. They have a good chemistry. There is a consistency to where even though I can tell it's not perfectly on a grid, they are perfectly complementing one another in this cool, organic, human kind of way. And even the rushing bits kind of give you a little bit of anticipation. It gives you a little bit of anxiety, which also aids in the emotionality they are conveying to us. And intuitively, I don't know if this was on purpose or not, none of this production I would say is like top tier, crystal clear, the greatest sounding stuff in and of itself. It's all capable, you know, it's all proficient, but it's not like the pinnacle of great sound. When they all come together, they all complement each other so well. The bass tone is not what I would consider my favorite bass tone, but it's very audible and does a great job doing what it needs to do. The guitar tone is not what I would consider my favorite guitar tone. As a matter of fact, I think it's probably a little bit too indistinct as far as fundamental pitch, but that works amazingly well in this song. And the bass covers a lot of that stuff because the bass is mostly following what the guitar is doing anyway. So that's like kind of extra, I don't want to say amplified, but complemented in the fundamental frequencies there between the bass and the guitar tone. And that allows the guitar a little bit more room for abrasion in a way that I think is actually really cool, in order for it to just be kind of gross and wrong in a good way, and fucking wrong in the right way. And the performance paired with that tone is like, I wouldn't change it. I absolutely wouldn't change it. And the drums, I'm not even sure how to describe the drums. It's like they're woody, but a little bit metallic. They're like kind of in a room, but it's also like really dead and right in front of your face. Like there's nothing crazy verby on these drums, which really complements the more, I was gonna say thrash, but that's not the right word. I guess punk, the more punk side of what they're getting at here, where it's just a little bit grimed, a little bit down to earth, in your face, no frills, raw who we are. And the shell resonance is there. It's absolutely there, but it's not this like really perfect, round, pristine thing. They're kind of fucked. They're kind of a little fucked. All of these sound design choices I wouldn't do, but complement each other and allow for the performances to shine through together in a great chemistry. Really naturally, intuitively, very well done. And if we look at who the producer was, Rick Rubin, which, there's things I really don't like about Rick Rubin, but there's things I greatly admire about Rick Rubin. This is an undeniably great record. The vocals are right on the edge of actually being like a growl. It's like a pitched fry or whatever it is, pitch distortion. Sorry, I don't remember all the proper vocal terms. My apologies. Which again leans into that dangerous edge, but still actually provides a melody so that normies can kind of latch onto it too. And that I think is perfectly emblematic of what makes this song so incredibly powerful, is that it does all of the metal stuff right for people who have really extreme taste, but it also simplifies things enough in the writing department so that it's easily accessible to people who have not really gotten into metal before or really just don't care much for extreme genres. There's nothing overcomplicated about that riff. The verse melody is instantly memorable, I would say. The da 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 da. So the A bit is like the long notes that kind of pull you in, and then you have the tension builder slash payoff delivery coming with dun, 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 but it also like kind of shoots you off into the next verse line, right? Oh man, that kick drum is just pissed. And it's not even that like deep and punchy, it's just pissed. And they got some great vocal distortion on the post effects there that I think really just pushes it just over the edge a little bit into that extra level of intensity towards the end of a verse that prepares you for a pre-chorus, which we're coming up on here. Best part of the song, in my opinion. First of all, we take this cool, rushing, kind of erratic, rhythmic thing that we've been doing, and then we just kind of let it splat on the ground into this loose dum 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 dum, where instead of doing staccato palm mutes. We're doing just let it ring palm mutes, for lack of a better term. Let it drone, zoom, zoom, zoom. And then we break the drums out from going into this really tight machine gunny type of thing to kind of giving it a little bit of a groove, a little bit more emphasis on the ride. And with that, we do the pinch harmonics, which is like the little bit of magic going on there. That's the extra bit of magic that takes this from a pretty good pre-chorus to a, whew, okay. And the vocals kind of get out of the way for a second, but they are anticipatory towards an explosion, which we're about to hear. Listen! Ah! It's like a vocal part that's a riser. It's great. Excellently written chorus. You got the big stab, the emphatic hit with these big vocals coming out around it. I'm a creature before I'm a man, or wolf before I'm a man, or whatever it was, sorry. So we got part A, which is the boom, and then we have the simple melody. So big stab A, simple melody B. Do that a few times, and then we get to the turnaround, which changes the tonal emphasis and gives you a slightly different riff with a big vocal perfection. Before I forget. Yeah, that whole thing. Really well written. One thing I just realized, they have a ton of distortion going on. I'm not sure exactly which parts they are. I didn't even hear this before in my focals, but they have a ton of distortion happening on some part of it. It might even just be on the master bus, honestly. Tons of, for lack of a better term, clipping, not digital crappy clipping, but like a purposeful distortion clipping. That's kind of cool. In a way, it's kind of increasing the perceived loudness, because when you do any kind of saturation, you're making quieter things become louder things. Eventually, you can just brick wall it. You know what I mean? Like actual compression. It is adding that perceived loudness of just freaking dirty. They probably did touch some faders there, but arguably without having to touch faders, you can add a dynamic to separate the choruses from the verses, especially since everything's really aggressive throughout the whole song. You can have that extra dynamic in there just by layering in some freaking distortion. It's a pretty cool choice. In the interest of time and just trying not to get a copyright claim, use as little of this as possible, I'm going to stop listening there. But I gotta say, like, there's no question to me why this was such a breakout song for the time. Especially 2004, I don't really think there was anyone doing this thing specifically. New metal, sure, but not this. Not like vacuuming out a whole bunch of the grunge stuff, replacing it with a bit of the sloppiness and a bit of the raw realism, for lack of a better term, of punk and old school thrash. They hit a perfect balance between being human and feeling real with human mistakes in quotes, and having a precision of chemistry together. It's a perfect balance. It's effectively a pop song. I mean, obviously there are writing differences between the two, but if you're talking about structure, if you're talking about catchiness, if you're talking about pacing, and you're talking about tension release, that's the structure of a pop song. There is zero surprise to me that this could be a hit on the radio, and was a massive hit on the radio. Excellent track. Again, I'm not really a huge fan of Slipknot, but that's a great song, and it deserves to be praised as a great song. Anyway, what do you guys think of it? Let me know in the comments below. Also, I would love if you guys supported me on Subscribestar. Link to that's in the description. Or you can become a YouTube member. That's also amazing. Helps me a lot. Or just send a tip. Come the night at gmail.com. Blah. Love you guys very much. Goodbye.